Hey everyone, welcome to Wildlife Inspired. I'm your host, Scott Keys. Today we're going to talk about what type of wildlife photographer are you? I've got a few categories that I think I can generalize everybody into one of these four categories. And I'm really curious, do you agree with the categories and where do you fall into those categories right after this? So a neat video today, we're going to talk about personality types in wildlife photography. And I want to find out where you're at. So I'm hoping to get some participation down in the comments. I'll put this out on Instagram as well. I'm going to ask people to watch the video and then I'll put a poll up just to see how do people self-identify as wildlife photographers. And I'm going to give you four options on this. Four buckets of wildlife photographers. Over the years, I have, obviously I'm consumed with wildlife photography still. And I'm also really interested in human behavior and how people are wired. And I do think there's a difference. You show an image to two people and they rate it differently. They inherently, they're looking at different things in that image. And I think that comes down to just the way we're wired. So there's this terminology called archetype. We're going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about these four categories, and ultimately I want to see where you fit. I'll give you some examples of what I think each of these categories looks like. But let's just dive right into what an archetype is. So I'm going to put the Webster's dictionary, I'm going to put the Merriam-Webster's dictionary definition of archetype up here. Now, notice down at the bottom, there's one that's references Carl Jung. And he actually has derived 12 personality types. You can actually take online tests. It's actually not an uncommon thing, but you can take these online tests and find out where you fall as a person. Now, what I did is I took these 12 and I pared them down to, he has 4 core tenets. And I took those 4 and I shaped my model after these 4. And I will tell you, over the years, I think this has been reinforced. I've always thought, are there more types that I'm missing? Are there fewer types? But at the end of the day, I really think it drops into these 4. So let me put those up on the screen for you. And here's what I think we've got. We've got technicians, we've got artists, we've got, I'm going to call them sharers in this video, and then we've got documentarians. That's a little bit vague, but basically people that like to document things for a purpose. So it's not intrinsically motivated as much as it is extrinsically motivated. So I'll talk about each of these in just a second, but these are the 4 categories we're going to talk about. Now, to get right into it, I'm going to just pull up a kind of an album that I created for this. So let's start with the technician. To me, the technician is somebody who is really consumed with accuracy. So the sharpest image possible, which is a really big deal to the technician. Accurate color, portraying what they see in the most realistic terms possible. I'll show you a couple examples. I don't consider myself the technician, but just a few examples. Here you see it, like just a hyper focus on sharpness, really all about the subject, often maybe cropped a little bit tighter to show off the features of the subject. And these would be images to me that are characteristic of the technician. Gear, always wanting the best gear, always wanting to upgrade, always knowing that the slightest little advantage you can get with gear could help you. So, usually shooting off a tripod, maybe high shutter speeds, because that's going to give you the sharpest image. The technician would, in the back of their minds, they would be knowing my lens is sharpest at f8, so I should be shooting at f8, or I should be using the rule of inverse for my focal length because I'm at 500 millimeters, so I need to have at least 500th of a second exposure, 1/500th of a second exposure to get the sharpest, or higher, or 1,000th of a second to get the sharpest possible image. This is the mindset. So this is what's going on in the technician's head all the time. So that's one type, and I just want you to think, maybe you're there already. Maybe you already know, yep, this is me. And no judgment here. I'm not wired as a technician. So if you've ever watched my work or seen my videos, you probably get the hint that that's not really how I'm wired. Now, I'm not going to tell you that technically I don't like good images. I mean, I would love all my images to be tack sharp, but it's not where I put my emphasis, which gives me to the second group of people. And these are the artists. Now the artists, and I'll show you a couple images here that I think represent what an artist might be looking at. And here you got motion blur and color, a little bit of behavior here, but kind of mood is what I'm looking at. Composition, again, like smaller in frame, composition, not a lot of detail. Composition is important, lighting is important. So for the artists, it's really more about evoking a mood. Technical perfection, not nearly as important. The artist is thinking more about how would this look on my wall? What is the color palette? Do I feel good? Does it elicit an emotion inside me or in my viewer? And the artist may be much more apt to do things like edit liberally. The technician may say, hey, I'm not going to clone out branches or remove things. I'm not going to, technically I want to get it right in camera. Like that's important. I get it right in camera. The artist may think, I'm an artist. Whatever goes, goes. I will change colors. I'll add things, take things away, manipulate, whatever I have to do, because the most important thing is that the end product be pleasing visually to me and evoke a mood within my audience. That's the artist. So I think, and by the way, I think those are on opposite ends of the spectrum. And I think these are the two biggest categories that we have in wildlife. There might be a third category if you put yourself in there that is much more common as well. So let's get to category number 3. Category number 3 is the documentarian. Now, the documentarian or storyteller, these are people that are much more interested about their images telling a story. Technical perfection, not critical, what would be nice. Evoking mood, not nearly as important as telling a story. Now think about your conservation photographers, people that are journalists, putting stories in magazines. So those storytellers visually are trying to complement possibly written word, but also possibly trying to tell a story just through images. So here, we've got an image that this was taken at my house. I like it. It's good. This is an image that I like. It's good. Maybe a little artsy, but it's kind of an urban background with wildlife. You might get a lot of subject interaction. So here's the story of, a mom and a chick. Here's a story of a dad or mom feeding their young. Here's a story of a raven kind of scavenging a carcass. And here's the story of a sharp-shinned hawk taking prey. So these are the storytellers. So the documentarians / storytellers are really much more thoughtful when it comes to the story behind the image. And they're probably not doing any editing or minimalistic editing, because in their work, you have to portray what you actually saw and captured. So you can't really submit to a lot of magazines if you've digitally manipulated those photos. If you're doing this conservation work, typically you don't see a lot of heavy editing in that work as well. So again, in the mind of the storyteller, the most important thing is documenting an event or being able to tell a story through photography. The last category is the sharer. Now, here's a couple of mine. Most of these go way back. This was my first encounter with a gray fox. This was the first time I saw a snowy owl. I shared all these images publicly. I thought this was a neat photo with this little fish suspended between the bill. This is one of the first times I got close to a duck. First time I saw a whooping crane. All of these images are not anything that I would put on my wall now. Now, back then, I may have thought they were great. In that day, I was just wanting to share my experiences. All these experiences were new and exciting for me, and I just wanted to put them out to the world. I think there are tons of people like this. It's interesting, for each of these archetypes, I can visually picture the person who fits this category. I mean, in my head, I can picture this person. The sharer gets great joy out of just the experiences of the natural world. They're not taking pictures to hang on their wall. They're not taking pictures to put in magazines. They're not taking pictures that they feel need to be perfect. They get so much joy out of just being in nature. They just want to put it out there for others to experience. The sharer is very intrinsically motivated. The storyteller might be a little bit more extrinsically motivated, if that makes sense. So the sharer wants to get the joy and emotion that they feel out to the world. The storyteller wants to put it out for the world to tell a story for them to consume. Hope that makes sense. So I'm going to jump back over here, and it's not a long video today. I'm curious where you're at. Did the archetypes make sense? I'll list them somewhere over there. Do the archetypes make sense? Did I miss some? Are there more than these 4? I struggled to try to come up with another one. I really do think that at the end of the day, if you force yourself into one of these 4 buckets, you can put yourself here. Now, here's the deal. Down in the comments, tell me which one resonates with you the most. I know there's some people that are going to say, "Well, I'm a sharer slash technician, or I'm an artist slash storyteller." That's not what we're doing. You got to pick one. What resonates with you the most? Really think hard about this. When you're out there taking photos to share, what's the reason you're sharing them? How are you driven? How do you approach the work? You know, if you would you post something that isn't technically perfect because of the mood that it evokes with others? Do you really feel deep down in your heart you want to tell a story to other people, or do you just love nature so much and wildlife so much that you just want to put it out there for the world to see? And it doesn't have to be perfect. So down in the comments, let me know where you stand. Hope you like this video. It was a quick one today. I hope I got the point across. Hope you like this one. Thanks for your ongoing support to the channel. And as always, I hope we can continue to find inspiration in wildlife together.